Greetings everyone, this is the weekly Addis dialogue. With it, I'm Shifarao. Recently, great movements are going on to engage the diaspora communities in the internal affairs of their home country. Dr. Tadios is an educator, a researcher, community organizer, and also social justice activist. He is also the president of the Ethiopian Public Diplomacy Task Force in Western United States of America. He is also the founder and also the president of the board of directors of the U.S. Africa Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be spending some time with this Ethio-American personality. Do stay with us. Tadios, thank you so much for being with us and welcome to your home country, Ethiopia.
Thanks for having me on and thanks for the invitation. It's an honor to be here and share the work that we have been doing over the past few months in the diaspora.
Well, let's start with your visit to Ethiopia. How long have you been here in your home country and what's the purpose of your visit?
Yeah, I think I've been here almost 3 weeks now. The purpose is, of course, to visit my family and in my country. This is my second time, since the reform. I was here 1.5 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, during the African Union meeting 2 years ago. So my purpose is one, to visit my family and my country, and to report back and deliver the message of the diaspora, especially the message of support and solidarity to the leadership of Ethiopian government, and to deliver medical supplies and funds that has been organized and mobilized for the gallant Ethiopian military force. So this is the second purpose, and the third purpose of my visit is to establish the U.S. African Institute at the Addis University, which is a U.S.-based institution to promote the strategic partnership between the United States and African countries on education, public diplomacy, tourism, trade, and other stuff.
I've learned from your bio that you are an educator, a researcher, community organizer, and also social justice activist. Multidisciplinary expertise, huh? Now tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So I have been working a lot of things over the past almost 10 years now since I left my country. I was a former refugee from Ethiopia. I returned back to my country almost 2 years ago because of the reform. I've been doing a lot of grassroots Black liberation movement in the United States. I was part of the Black Lives Matter movement, the immigration justice movement in the United States, and I'm also an educator. I've been teaching in a lot of colleges in the United States as well as in Africa. So that's why I call myself as educator. In fact, I got my doctorate in global education and policy. So I call myself as educator and plus grassroots, organizer and social justice activist. I work closely with the Black American community, the Black diaspora community, including the Ethiopian American community. So that's why I call myself as a social justice activist and organizer and educator.
Let's also turn our attention to the Ethiopian Public Diplomacy Task Force. What are its major duties and responsibilities?
Well, so the Ethiopian Public Diplomacy Task Force was established, very recently at the start of, the law enforcement operation in the northern part of our country to be able to close the gap in terms of, our government's public diplomacy work in North America. So basically, the public diplomacy task force was established to streamline efforts of various Ethiopian diaspora efforts to mobilize resources, to organize our community, to be able to support the diplomacy work of the Ethiopian government, and also to create awareness about the law enforcement operation in the northern part of our country. So these are the major reason why we established the Ethiopian Public Diplomacy Task Force. We have three major areas. We have been engaging with elected officials. We've been having a lot of meetings with Congress members, members of the Senate in the United States, and as well as the public relation work. As you know, we are living in an era of fake news. So we're trying to disseminate, or we're trying to give the correct information about the law enforcement operation of the Ethiopian government, because the other sides, or the TPLF's propagandists, they have been disseminating a lot of fake news and misinformation and disinformation to the international community. So we've been monitoring the social media, and as well as we've been engaging with international community and the international media. And the third area of the public diplomacy task force is organizing our community, and as well as mobilizing resources for our country, for our government, for the Ethiopian military force. So these are the major three areas that we've been focusing over the past few months to be able to support the public diplomacy work of the Ethiopian government and the Ethiopian people, of course.
Let's also talk about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is Ethiopia's flagship multi-billion-dollar project. What should the roles of Ethiopian diaspora communities be in shoring up the construction of this huge dam, be it in terms of promoting it, financial support, and so on?
So I think it's very important to recognize that the Ethiopian government is not really, utilizing the resource, the knowledge, the experience of the Ethiopian diaspora. So this is the right time to utilize, the resources, the knowledge, the experience of our community in the diaspora, like you said, to be able to engage with a lot of, advocacy work, policy work, in terms of, advocating for the rights and interests of the Ethiopian government and in the Ethiopian people to use the Nile Dam, because this is our natural right, to use our dam. This is our water, and this is within our sovereign territory. Of course, Ethiopia has natural right and legal right, under international and as well as regional laws. So our community have been engaging with policymakers, with U.S. elected officials, with U.S. government officials, to be able to advocate for the rights and interests of the Ethiopian government in terms of using this dam. There is a lot of work to be done, and like I said earlier, the Ethiopian diaspora is the most underutilized community. When you look at other communities, other African countries, they properly use the power, the political power, the economic power of their diaspora. But when you come to our government, there is a gap, and that gap is not using our resource, not using my effort, my knowledge, my experience, our experience and our knowledge. So I think this is the time for the Ethiopian government to effectively and proactively engage with the Ethiopian diaspora, to be able to advance the interests and rights of Ethiopian people.
Let's also talk about the Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund. How far has it gone so far in your view? Has it galvanized the diaspora communities into action? Where is it now in your views?
And again, this question takes, us back to the first, the earlier question. Are we really, using, the diaspora? Are we utilizing, our resource? The diaspora is an economic, powerhouse. The Ethiopian, trust fund has been raising, millions of dollars to support the development and economic projects in Ethiopia over the past, few years. And of course, that's our obligation, to support this fund. But and again, we need to do a lot of work to mobilize our community, to organize our community so that we can contribute more money, more dollars to this fund so that we can build, schools, healthcare facilities, roads, and other development, projects in our country. So again, there is a huge gap in terms of engaging with the diaspora. And I'm suggesting the Ethiopian government to proactively engage with the diaspora community, to raise funds, to support, the public diplomacy work, to be able to, effectively advocate for the interests and rights of, the Ethiopian people and the Ethiopian government.
And how are you guys working to create stronger, more robust ties between Ethiopia and the United States of America, especially after Donald Trump's comments about the dam and also the deplorable attempts by the Treasury Department to solidify Egypt's wrong positions?
Our community now, is really, doing a great work in terms of, advocating for, the rights of Ethiopians, the interests of Ethiopia. But the previous administration or the outgoing administration, the Trump administration, has been, very vocal against, the interests of Ethiopia when it comes to, the dam and other, national, projects and plans. But the Ethiopian diaspora community has been, I don't know if you have, followed, closely the election. We have been very active in terms of organizing our community and other communities to vote for the incoming, administration, for the Biden administration. And in fact, I was also part of the campaign. I was also working as election worker to be able to, support, his administration, and plus, to make sure that, the United States, was, having a fair and free election. So our community role was very, very, significant in terms of, supporting, the Biden administration. And of course, we need to work closely with his administration because there is a lot of things that that needs to be work in terms of advancing the rights of Ethiopian government and the rights of Ethiopian people, especially with the dam and then other national projects. So I think we are in a privileged position, as an Ethiopian American. We have the right to be able to actively engage and advocate, for the rights and interests of our country. And there are so many, Ethiopian diaspora associations and groups that have been actively engaging with elected officials and then with the Biden campaign. And so, and I'm very, hopeful, I'm very optimistic, in terms of building a good relationship with Biden administration. And again, the Ethiopian government, needs to utilize the resource and capacity of, the Ethiopian diaspora to be able to, advocate, for the rights of Ethiopians with regard to, relationship with the United States, government.
What should Ethiopia and the United States do in order to create more robust and stronger ties between Ethiopia and the United States of America under the incoming administration, that's the Biden administration?
So first, I think the good thing about the diaspora community now is it has been very active in terms of organizing, doing the grassroots work, during his campaign and during the election season. And now we need to take that energy to be able to build a good relationship with the Biden administration. Of course, we'll have more meetings and conversation with his staff members and with his administration to create a stronger bond between the United States and Ethiopia. On a number of issues. It's not only the political issue, but also we have the cultural diplomacy, the education diplomacy, the tourism and trade relationship between the United States and in Ethiopia, and the role of the Ethiopian diaspora in that regard is really huge.
Ethiopia's public diplomacy, where is it now in your views, and what should be the focal areas of Ethiopian government in the future?
In terms of public diplomacy with regard to the Ethiopian government, I have had a chance to meet some of our leaders in Ethiopia. So we raised the same question and the same we gave them some recommendation that needs to be done as soon as possible to be able to advance our interests. Ethiopia is a big country with over 100 million people. So we need to have the capacity to be able to protect our interest and our right. So in that regard, I think we need to have a seasoned diplomats and ambassadors, especially in North America, to be able to advance the interest of Ethiopia. Like I said, having over 100 million people, we can't afford losing our diplomacy in countries like the United States. The government should take a serious measure in terms of deploying a very seasoned and experienced diplomats and ambassadors who can understand the culture, the political culture and structure of the United States. Without knowledge, without any experience, you have seen how we have lost the diplomacy, battle in many countries, especially in European countries, but at least in the United States, in North America, because of the active engagement of the diaspora community. I think we have been able to advance our diplomacy, a little bit, in a positive way. But the government should again, proactively engage with the diaspora, and also in terms of deploying our diplomats. And who are these diplomats? Do they have the background in international diplomacy and international relations? So I think now is the time to examine the role of our diplomats and ambassadors. And the reason why we started the Ethiopian Public Diplomacy Task Force is because of the gap. We're trying to close the gap. We're trying to support the diplomacy work in the United States. But still, we need to have a seasoned and experienced diplomats and ambassadors. This is the United States of America. We have had a good relationship over many years, and at the same time, we need to make sure that Ethiopia is represented by an experienced and knowledgeable diplomat and ambassadors.
You are also a lecturer at the U.S. Africa Institute. What has been the relationship like between the continent of Africa and the United States?
To begin with, the U.S. Africa Institute, it's an academic and research institute based in the United States. We are promoting academic and research partnership between the United States and Africa, not only on the education aspect, but also on the trade, tourism, cultural diplomacy, citizen diplomacy. We have been receiving, millions of dollars in loans. Look at the resource we have in Africa. We have to change that narrative. We have to change our relationship in terms of, protecting the interests of Africans. We should not depend on loans. We should not depend on foreign aid assistance of the United States government. Ethiopia or the rest of Africa, have huge resources. We need to focus on trade. We need to promote, our trade relationship between the United States and Africa. We need to, promote our economic, partnership between, United States and Africa. So that's how we can, protect and advance our interests as Africans, as Ethiopian American. So that's how, we can advance our interests. Otherwise, we'll be, receiving in their handouts. Look at, even the dam. If Ethiopia were in a position of a good, political or economic development, they will not say anything to us. This is, an independent country, established, even before, thousands of, the United States. So we need to establish, a relationship, a mutual, respectful, relationship between the United States and Africa, and in particular, the United States and Ethiopia. So that's why, we created, we established the U.S. African Institute to promote a mutual and respectful partnership, strategic partnership between the United States and Africa through education, through research projects, trade, investment, tourism, citizen diplomacy. So that's what we've been doing over the past almost couple of years since the establishment of the U.S. Africa Institute, and also we've been supporting some African universities in Niger and South Sudan, and now here in Ethiopia at Addis University to build the capacity of our universities, our research institutions, with faculty development. It could be leadership training, or even bringing resources, funds from outside to be able to build our capacity in Ethiopia or any other parts of Africa.
Well, Tadios, thank you so much for your wonderful perspectives, and keep on doing your great job.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you. Really appreciate your time and the invitation.
Well, dear viewers, that was Dr. Tadios Belai talking to us in this edition of Addis Dialogue. Many thanks for watching us. Until I see you with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shifarao Lagom. Bye-bye.